Thanks for having me. Great to be here. Love this country. Love your beer. Love your food. Love your football teams. And we're going to talk about that a little bit. So Dennis always puts me after lunch. You want to know why? It's my job to get you guys fired up, excited. Okay, let's roll. I only have 45 minutes, so I got to go fast through the stuff that's not so interesting. This is the title of the talk, The Ethics of AI. This is a young Tim with, well, there's old Tim up there. We're going to go fast through the marketing stuff. I should probably say that when I was a young man, I worked at Microsoft in Building 25 on Windows NT Server. Anybody have gray hair that remembers Windows NT Server? Yeah, amen. 46 million lines of code. 2,500 people on that team. 2,500 people. Look how times have changed. Look how productive we are with teams of 4, right? Isn't that amazing? Well, it's not that amazing. And yeah, I've been lucky to stand on stage with some of the more famous Microsoft people throughout my career, which means I have a ton of stories that are only appropriate with Heineken. And we could do that after this, later on today. So yeah, the other reason I'm here is I'm that guy. I'm the guy that built some of the creepy stuff. And, I guess I could claim naivety, but in some ways I kind of feel bad with it. You know, the technology that looks at the face and not only does a facial recognition, but does an emotional profile. And based on an emotional profile, delivers an advertisement. If you're holding a Pepsi and you're happy, it might send you a Coke ad. Not creepy, right? I know more about privacy law than any technologist you've ever met, and that's a shame. To my credit, I didn't know that if me and my team built this amazing software, bad people would use it. And that's kind of the point of this talk. We're the technology elite. We have to be ethical and stand up to these business people that want to do bad things with powerful stuff. Fair enough? Okay, we're done. Let's go to the bar. Now, so would you guys feel like your privacy was invaded if the government or the retail systems I'm talking about are looking at you and reacting based on your facial expressions? Would you? I would. Guess who wouldn't? That fiery little Italian American that I've been married to for 34 years. Because if she got a coupon for 40% off for cute shoes, whatever those are, she wouldn't care. She would not care. And that's kind of the point too. And of course, government does this stuff. And they do it for legitimate security reasons. I mean, if you walked into this conference center and there was a camera, and it looked at your face and it looked at a terrorist database, a bad guy database, to make sure there's no terrorists in here, would you feel like your privacy was invaded? Yeah, some people would say yes. And that's why there are places in the world where they've taken these things away from the authorities. And San Francisco, California would be one of those places where they've taken that type of security away from the police. Where I live in San Diego, California, it's everywhere. And it's probably everywhere here also. So that's what we're going to talk about today. We'll go quickly over this. I've been lucky to work with a lot of companies all over the world throughout my career. Because I live in Southern California, I've had the privilege to do a bunch of high-profile Hollywood type stuff. You're supposed to be impressed by that, whatever. The John King, top left is Grey's Anatomy, which I've never seen. But these actors are really quite nice people. Sandra Oh, I believe is her name. And then, of course, everyone knows the CNN app. And oh, man, can I tell you stories about that. But I won't, because I've only got 45 minutes. So AI is saving lives and has been for a long time. Right? Whether it's mapping the human genome fully, which, did you know, we really haven't mapped the human genome yet, no matter what scientists say. but we have the potential to map it and solve some really complex medical problems. It's saving lives right now. The other takeaway, I might as well tell you right now, is I believe the power of AI, especially its life-saving power, more than outweighs what bad people are going to do with it. And bad people are going to do bad things with it and will continue to do bad things with it. I won't show you this video. Oh, I'm supposed to tell you that if you want this PowerPoint deck, the source code from the demos, videos like this, at the end there'll be a URL where you can download my PowerPoint deck. A lot of people use my deck to sell their own companies, like, we got to do this AI stuff, and you're more than welcome to have all that. But I heard about this rare disease called PUV, pulmonary urethral valve syndrome. It's a very rare disease, but if the physician misses it in the, what do you call that X-ray for pregnant people? Ultrasound, thank you. In the ultrasound, if the physician misses it, the baby dies. Like that, right? It's 100% fatal. So most physicians are trained to see it, which is a perfect scenario, perfect use case for computer vision, right? Tim figured out how to do this at 3 o'clock in the morning, and within a couple weeks, I'm on stage with Microsoft people, and a month after that, it goes into production at the largest radiology firm in the world. And they use that as part of their workflow now, just in case the physician misses it. That is a tool that is brilliant for AI. Perfect use case. AI doesn't make decisions for us. No matter what Dennis says, it doesn't drive his car, right? But I gotta move over here. I got a bunch of speaker buddies right over there. Where was I? I was talking about AI as a tool, right? It doesn't replace us as humans, but it can be a very valuable tool. Hey, here, let's move on. Gotta go quickly. Oh, that's the COVID thing. The other thing that we did right off the bat when COVID started, this is like, 3-4 years now, is detect COVID in an X-ray. It's really quite easy with computer vision if you have the proper inputs, right? If you have enough data. That's kind of the problem of machine learning, right? Data. Getting data is very difficult, getting the right data in machine learning. Okay, now we're at a demo, thank God. So this is a Microsoft conference. So let me show you the dumbest named best technology in Azure. This is called custom vision. You may know it. Custom vision is object recognition and identification. God only knows why they didn't call it Azure Object Identification. They called it custom vision. But this is how you recognize objects. Remember that I talked about in retail, if somebody's standing in front of a sign holding a Coke? This is the tech that we use. Okay, so let me just show you a project I built. I have 30 pictures of Coke bottles trained. You with me? 34 Coke cans, et cetera, et cetera. In machine learning of 10 years ago, that would be unheard of, that small a sample, right? You have to train thousands of images. So the fact that this works at any level is super impressive. And the model behind this, the machine learning model, is very impressive. And you could use this to detect anything, any object, okay? Let me just take you through the portal. This is customvision.ai. Precision, so I've taken all these pictures and I press go. And up on these big machines in Azure, it trains the model for me and spits out a REST interface. Even I can use a REST interface, right? Okay, so the model here, precision is, if I have 10 images and I come back correctly on 7 of them, 7 of them, I get a 70% precision. Recall means if I have 10 images and I'm trying to recognize some type of tree, and I identify 7 correctly, that's 70% in recall. The MAP thing is the overall score of my machine learning model. Okay, so 84, that's pretty good. That's a pretty legitimate model. Predictions, these iterations over here, This is how many times I've trained this model. This is me testing last night, this lady with a Pepsi can. And it says, this is important. Notice it says, yeah, right on top. I'm 70% confident that that's a Pepsi can. Can you guys see that? Okay. And then, I'm 18% confident that's a Coke can. So now I can use this picture, trace around the Pepsi, and retrain the model a 5th time, and it would be that much smarter. Does that make sense? Okay. So, and then I'm not going to do it because we'll just, look at wheels turning, but that's how you train. So let me do a quick test. So I'll pick something local. And of course, you can do this in real time, but this is the static version of it. Oh, God, how about pictures? How about computer vision? Hey, perfect. Do we have a Coke in there? Oh, I did this in Norway once. Here's a Coke with a polar bear on it. Why doesn't it like that? Did I go up into, no, it's local. What are you talking about? Here we go. Bear with me. Computer? How about this? I've bombed many a demo on stage. Person holding a Coke. And images. There's some crazy guy. Copy image address. How about this way? Beautiful. Go. Okay, so this one's not in the model. And it's going to come back and it's going to say, all right, Windows command to make the screen smaller. Windows minus, or is that control minus? Control minus. There we go. Okay, I just bombed the demo. Do you remember Steve Sinofsky?
Yeah.
Remember him, the guy that tried to kill .NET? The executive at Microsoft? I once bombed a demo behind him, and it was a similar demo where the control had spread off the screen because we didn't have enough resolution, and he was furious. Trust me, this works great. To my credit, we don't have a lot of bandwidth. I have 5 megs up. So I think that was a bandwidth issue. All right, check this out. This, for its time, a few years back, was super impressive. So the trick, if you're gonna look at faces and do all that creepy stuff, is finding the faces. And this is a face detector in a crowd of seemingly thousands, and it's picked out every little face in there. But that really doesn't mean anything, because once getting the face is one thing, then you have to process the face. So the interesting thing about this face detector, which is revolutionary, was we couldn't get enough compute power to process that many faces at a time. Don't you find that interesting? I find that fascinating, that our computers are so powerful, yet they're not powerful enough for this particular use case. And we're going to talk a little bit more about that. In fact, we're going to talk a lot more about compute power in a second. I think this is interesting, too. We have this, it says national, but it's a worldwide standard board called NIST. And every 4 years, they do a bunch of standardized testing, which means pretty soon, I assume, in the next 12 months or so, they're going to do this test again. But 3 years ago, they did a test of facial recognition vendors. And let me help you interpret the results here. The top graph is absolute accuracy. there's like 400 vendors that submit their algorithms to these testing, and look who won. That is super interesting to me. The same algorithm that you can get out of Microsoft Cognitive Services is the same algorithm they use in Windows Hello. You know, like when a computer authenticates you by looking at you. That's the same algorithm, and it's scary good. The ones they use at the airport, that's not Microsoft. That's, oh God, what is that company? They're probably up here. Oh, that IBM company. I forget their name. Anyways, they had won this for forever and ever and ever. The bottom graph is also super interesting, at least to me. The accuracy gains since 2013. So basically, in 10 years, well, this time it was 7 years, we got to, 300 vendors got to a 99.98% accuracy on a facial recognition. This is a solved problem. And it's been solved for a long time, okay? If someone wants to identify you and put a GUID, you know, in a grocery store, they may not know your name, but they could put a GUID to your face and see that every Saturday morning or probably most likely Saturday night, you go in really late and get ice cream. They could do that, right? And a lot of other bad things. Who remembers Moore's Law? Dr. Gordon Moore. We all learned this in school, so let me refresh your memory. Dr. Gordon Moore, who I've never met, and he's still with us. It would be a lifelong goal for me to meet this guy. He's the founder of Intel, but in 1960, probably says behind me, 65-ish, 63-ish, he wrote a magazine article for Popular Mechanics magazine, and he noticed a trend and made a prediction. And at the time, we could cram twice as many transistors on our circuit board, which equates to our CPUs get twice as powerful every 2 years. So if I do the math in my head, that's almost 60 years. That prediction has been uncanny in its execution. We are still executing Moore's Law. Why is that important? Our CPUs, although not powerful enough, are growing like this exponentially in power so that scenarios I described earlier and other ones software can ultimately catch up to hardware. This is fairly interesting. I wish I had a current version of this. This is 3 years old. That 50 number top left is trillion. So 50 trillion transistors are crammed onto our highest, most powerful CPUs. 50 trillion transistors. No, I have no idea how they do that. Robots? I have no idea, right? That is fairly interesting. You know what's more interesting? Our current CPUs that have 50 trillion transistors on them execute at the speed of like the brain of a deer or a cow. You know, a couple years ago, it was at the speed of a rabbit or a rodent. Look at that intersection point behind me. 2025, if Moore's Law continues to execute, our CPUs will calculate at the speed of the human brain. Does that mean, you know, machines are taking over? No. But it means we could solve some impressive problems. It also means, like in quantum computing, that we can break all the security protocols of the internet. But nonetheless, we could solve some cancer with stuff like that. Do you not think that's interesting? I just think that's fascinating. All right. Anybody heard of this? Yeah. You know, it's because you're the technology elite. My wife and the Kardashians have never heard of this. Thank you. You owe me beer. We had a bet that I couldn't work the Kardashians into this talk, and I just did. Because I got to get back on track or I'm going to go late. Because you're the technology elite, you know this. You know how to use it effectively. There is a session this afternoon. It's called something like, "Is ChatGPT a better programmer than me?" or something like that, by my two best friends, new best friends. You need to go see that. I'm going to go see that because it can generate code. But back to normal humans, not you, the technology elite. My wife doesn't know how to use ChatGPT. I used the Dolly thing on her the other day. I said, "Hey, sweetie, check out this," because I was preparing for this keynote and building this demo. And it, created an image, and I'll do that in a second. And she said, "No, it didn't. That's a real image." And how do you answer to that? That's like a Kardashian type answer. Me too, Bears. All right. Okay, there's the failed demo. Let's get Visual Studio running. So I think it's not a stretch to anticipate that Microsoft will implement GPT and Dolly in a number of products, not the least of which are the Office suite. This would be an integration with Microsoft Word. I worked with a brilliant developer, Marquise Howard, from back in the States to, my idea, and made him build it. But it goes without saying we'll have this. It goes without saying that we'll have a Visual Studio. What do you call those plugins? Do they call them plugins for Visual Studio? The extension, Visual Studio extension, was a little more difficult, a lot more difficult to build than an Office add-in. But, here, I'm in the Netherlands, and I'm totally a sports guy. And I understand not everyone in the room is a sports person, but I am. The Huckabys are total sports nuts, and we are Arsenal fans. No reaction? God, normally I get a hiss, or like, Tottenham. So how about this? Let's ask GPT. Create essay, say, on the history of Dutch football as it relates to the Arsenal football team. How about that? Okay. Now what do you want to talk about? Just chat or GPT is not, there's nothing real time about this thing. It's a monster. It takes a lot of crunching, constantly during the day with big machines. So and with only 5 megs of internet access, it's going to take a second here to give me the history of Dutch football. So while we're waiting, did it? Oh, okay. All right, so let's go here. Can you read that, or should I make it bigger? You can read that? Okay. So one of my favorite Dutch players, you'll agree this is impressive, right? This is super impressive. But I did this demo earlier, and I assume it's going to give me the same answer, and it didn't mention one of my favorite Dutch players on Arsenal, whose name is Van Persie. You're supposed to go, no one loves football here? All right, so check this out. At a 10-year-old level, right? You with me? So we'll change what we'll give ChatGPT here and have it write an essay the way a 10-year-old would do it. Anybody have 10-year-old children here? Right? You're doomed as parents. Hey, go do your homework. 2 seconds later, okay, I'm done. Here it is. And this is going to be tricky for teachers. So let me get down here and we'll paste this in. And if I did this, there we go. Oh, come on. To me, this is fairly interesting because I just did this demo and it mentioned Van Persie.
It is in the first essay in the fourth
Well, yeah, you know, Microsoft Word probably has this search thing. Van, now I got to remember how to spell it. Is it like that? All right, Robin Van Persie. Okay. All right, beautiful. Now, while we're here, we might as well not split this up. Let me go over to the do we pronounce this DALL-E? The DALL-E version of it. This is the image generation thing. This is how you overcome the copyrights for all those pictures that are out of the internet. What do you think it's going to do with drinking Heineken? Did I spell it right? Heineken? Yes. Yeah. Why does it hate it? Oh, because all right. Big image. You wanted me to do the Kardashians with, yeah.
You should have a drinking Coke.
I'm not. Oh, no way. I've not done this demo, but that is, let me see if it really looks like him. So, a good point. You know, we're not in a perfect world here, and that sure as hell doesn't look like a Heineken to me. And notice the trademark logos of the soccer clubs, or you know, that's not Emirates or you know what Arsenal's. Yeah, fairly interesting though. So I get to own that image. All right, enough of this. Let's get back on track. All right, we did that. So, of all the shit that's, sorry, of all the stuff that's scary, we're in the Netherlands, right? You don't care. In a different audience, I'd get a lecture. Of all the stuff that scares me the most, I think it's deep fakes. And deep fakes also has a good. And that is, you know, we've been building movies with synthetic actors for a long time. When was this Star Wars movie where Carrie Fisher was long passed away? And they essentially created a deep fake with her. They synthesized her look and her voice. This is like 7-8 years ago, right? And it's really common in Hollywood now. In fact, if I were Brad Pitt, which, you know, I look a lot like him, tall and skinny, then I'd be worried. I'd be worried about getting replaced. That Avatar movie, do you know why this is fairly interesting trivia. You know why it took James Cameron to build the second Avatar so long? Why there was like, 10 years between Avatar 1 and 2? He was waiting for CPUs that could render his frames quick enough. Literally waiting 10 years for more powerful computers. Because he wanted that, you know, that blue lady to look like a thing. That to me is fairly interesting too. But the fact that a 12-year-old could go on the internet and get tools and synthesize my grandmother's voice or my wife's voice, apply a bot technology to it and have a phone conversation with my wife in my voice, sweetheart, you need to wire $10,000, you know, to this account immediately. I'm in a coffee shop in Amsterdam, right? That's although I bring, you know, humor to it. That's fairly terrifying. We did this. This is the image. I should just talk about. This is the image that my wife said, "No way, computers didn't generate that." Look what I typed in. It was something like a crossbred of a turtle and a dolphin. I spelled bread wrong. See that? Yeah, and she's like, oh, you know, some grandma made that thing. All right, this is, in case you're interested and you want this source code, this was done in Blazor. That's what us .NET guys use for web apps now, so we can use C#. And then there's this cool set of tools called RADs. And these Office Web Admin, or Office Web Add-ins. I don't know if you guys go back to Visto, Visual Studio Tools for Office. It was wildly broken and terribly implemented, but these are legit. These Office web add-ins, super, super easy to implement. So if you want to integrate, I have another demo. It's not done yet, and this is just a demo, right? This isn't ready for production. That does Excel, because like Excel is mind-boggling to us, right? You know, you stare at data and you're like, I wonder how I could get it to do this, right? That's a perfect implementation of GPT. You know, give me a formula that visualizes all this data here. That's all you get, and it does it for you. This is terrifying. This is Microsoft's, and there's 100 of these available. This is Microsoft's implementation of voice synthesis. I saw this a few years back first with Scott Guthrie, who's like the #2 guy at Microsoft, the founder of .NET. We joined Microsoft at the same time. He's a great guy. Has he spoken at this conference? He's so much better than me. And then Satya Nadella, and they had virtual Satya and virtual Scott talking to each other in context as the two real people watched on stage in horror. Literally, and they killed it right at that moment. Microsoft has this amazing tech that could analyze just 3 seconds of your voice and produce a close to perfect, nothing's perfect in our world, right? But close to perfect synthesis of your voice. And they're not going to release it. It's too dangerous. And I agree with that. Holding back the computer vision API, which they also did under the guise of responsible ethical computing is, but this is a little bit too dangerous. The idea, why would they do this? You're wondering about the use case? There's companies that would want to, let you chat with virtual Beyonce for $50 an hour. Makes sense. There's people that would do that. But you're the technology elite. You would not do that. Understand that. You're not the person you're building software for. You're building software for my wife, which makes it very difficult. You ever heard about the perfect software company? It has no users and no customers, right? All right. There's nothing new about this stuff. A decade ago, these 4 companies did awful things. The most creative of which was Amazon. They have Amazon here, right? It's everywhere almost. Amazon found a hole in Flash, and was essentially going through a security weakness in Flash to gather all your data. And they did it until they're caught. And that's like a decade ago. If you don't think Google is reading your Gmail in AI, you're nuts. They are. My ex-Microsoft buddies I used to work with work there. You ever wonder why you get these targeted ads and like, how did they know I'm interested in, for me, it's like a fly fishing rod. How did they know? Well, they're reading my Gmail. I think that's an invasion of my privacy, but if you look at theirs and all of these companies' licensing agreements, it's right in there. We can do whatever we want with your stuff. If you want to use our email client for free, you have to sacrifice that. All right, this is a little more sobering. The US isn't the only place in the world with crazy people. You have crazy people too. And it's so prevalent now. This is one of the things I'm proud of. I used that technology that we were talking about before to build a weapons recognition machine learning algorithm in Microsoft Custom Vision. And it works pretty darn good. Okay? Why would you do that? Well, you're staring, remember that crowd, that picture of that crowd? If someone showed just a bit of a pistol, you could, boom, get it and send an alert to the authorities. Of course, that breaks all the privacy laws because you'd be looking at people. But the fact that you could do it and implement this in a school, in a school's parking lot where these crazy people run in and they call it the important 10 seconds or something like that, where the guy opens his trunk. They're typically guys, so I can say that, right? Is that D&I compliant, that most crazy people are guys? They go in there, they're fumbling around with ammunition and guns and stuff, and that's enough. That's enough time to send an alert. Here's my buddy Tony. You know what the red thing at the end. If you have boys, if you have kids that are boys, you know what this is. The red thing at the end of the gun, that means toy. That's the only thing the authorities have to determine what's a real gun and what's a toy gun, that thing. And you can see Tony's got that thing in his hand, and it says, I'm 90% confident that's a pistol. Everything in computer vision comes with a confidence, if a confidence percentage, if I didn't say that before. Okay, I think I'm going to make it. We're back to, hey, is this stuff powerful enough that we're excited about it because we're going to fix some cancers? Or is the world ending with our kids? And I would argue that, again, that the power of these tools in AI, the fact that we could save lives with some of this stuff, more than outweighs the bad guys that are out there. And we have a responsibility as technologists, as developers, to use this stuff in the right way. These books, I don't know if you've read them, they're quite interesting. They talk about this dystopian, does that translate to Dutch? Yes. This dystopian, this negative view of the world, how the machines are taking over and such. And the machines aren't taking over. Bad humans are doing bad things. That's simply that. All righty. So if I'm explaining what the power of AI is to the Kardashians, that's like 5 beers you owe me, then I would say you would equate that to like a nuclear weapon or nuclear power, right? AI saves lives. It makes lives easier. It does menial tasks. It entertains us in movies, right? Nuclear energy gave us the microwave oven. You know, that may not be a big deal here, but in the United States of America, that's how we cook. Isn't that a shame? That's how the Kardashians cook. 6. And we got out of nuclear power, we get submarines are propelled by them and ships and things like that. And I even think like fire detection is done in nuclear power. But we also got the most dangerous weapon in the world. And AI is kind of the same thing. We've got all this good, but we have a potential for bad guys to do bad things. So that's how I talk about it. All right, I'm done, and I made it. If you want this stuff, because of that CNN video, this PowerPoint deck is huge. So if you want this, go to this link. You can have my deck. You can contact me. You can get the source code from my buddy Marquise. So thank you so much for listening to me and bearing with my jokes. I love to talk about this stuff. Do I have any time?
6 minutes.
Wow, I've got 6 minutes in case anybody wants to do a question or a comment about Americans. About anyone? Questions, comments? Okay, yes, sir. We're not friends, are we? The question was, hey, Tim, you didn't talk, can I paraphrase? You didn't talk about democracy and government and how AI will affect it and fake news and all that. Yeah, I didn't talk about that on purpose. You know where I'm from? Do you remember that? Can we say asshole? Yep. Do you remember that asshole that used to be our president? Yeah, all joking aside, you could create content with GPT that if GPT doesn't put the right regulations in there, could be terrible. It really could. I tried to get GPT to do a picture of Dennis and Donald Trump before you guys came in here, and it wouldn't do it. Where'd you go? There you are. Anything racy like that, it tries to prevent it. Being that said, there's really smart people who've already figured out how to get around that. So yeah, the fake news thing, in my personal opinion, and I think you agree, is just going to get worse and worse. Shock journalism. Shock journalism is a big problem. Did you guys see the article that today, Well, today in the U.S., and we're behind, so literally 8 hours behind, said Microsoft fired their entire ethics for AI team. You didn't see that? That came out yesterday. And it's shock journalism. It's not true. They laid off a couple people out of that team. They didn't kill the whole team. But that's how you get clicks. And that's a tricky problem to fix, my friend. Great comment, great question. Anything else before I let you go?
Yeah.
Yes, sir.
You talked about the voice recognition that was cancelled, but there are numerous companies that will jump into that pool.
The comment is, and I know I mentioned it, that Microsoft has this awesome voice synthesis, this Valley thing that creates voices, and they withheld it from the public. But there's 100 companies that already do it. Yeah, there are.
So wouldn't it have been better to just enforce it?
Great point. So he says, well, why not just release it? Because they do it better, and it can be used in some use cases. Yeah, there's an. Yeah, there's. Totally agree. There's an argument against that, or for that. Absolutely. Are you comfortable with Microsoft making morality decisions for you? I didn't say that, but I casually mentioned the Vision API in cognitive services. It's an amazing API. And Microsoft decides whether you can use it or not. If you screw me, Dennis, wherever you went, he said I could say bad words on stage and the Dutch don't care. But that's bullshit, right? Microsoft does not decide my morality. That I have a huge problem with. That a group of millennials, sorry to the millennials out there. How are we doing? Okay, one more. We got time for one more. Yes, sir.
How do we go about biases in AI?
Say that one more time.
Biases.
How do we overcome biases? With much difficulty. The question is, how do we overcome bias in AI? In the United States, I can't speak for the insurance here, but in the United States, in the insurance industry, we've been using bias for, like 50 years. Like if an African American in a urban upper class neighborhood, right? The insurance companies jacks them up immediately because they assume drug addict or drug dealer type thing. That's not kidding. Where'd you go? There you are. No, there you are. That we've been doing that stuff forever. So how do we overcome that? With a lot of work. As much work as building the algorithms, we need to put into overcoming bias. And that, from an engineering perspective, as you'd imagine, is tricky. But we have to do that. We have to. If we want a fair society. Yeah, great comment, great question. All right, how we doing? I think it's time to let you guys go. Yeah, they're going like this at me. Get off the stage, thanks.